Evaluating Dennis Schroder's impact on this Houston Rockets team after 5 games. What has he looked like alongside some of the other Houston Rockets players and some of the lineups that he's being utilized in? Also, grades for Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and Josh Christopher, their progression and development to this point in the season, coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
With the second pick in the 2021 NBA Draft, the Houston Rockets select Jalen Green.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep getting better every day. I'm going to keep perfecting my craft. And every time I step on that floor, I'm coming.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, and the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets. As always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets your first listen each and every day. For today's episode, we've got a bunch of topics we want to get into. I want to talk about how Dennis Schroder has impacted this Houston Rockets team in just 5 games so far, what he has done on the offensive side of the floor and the defensive side of the floor, as well as assigning grades for Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and Josh Christopher, and how they've looked, their development and progression to this point in the season. Joining us now is host of the Noble and Roosh podcast, the #1 podcast on the Ball is Life network. My guy, Roosh Williams, good friend of the show. What's up, Roosh? How you doing?
I'm chilling, man. Thanks for having me. Good to be back. It's been a minute. Our double. Settled in back in Los Angeles, and let's talk some Rockets.
But first, are you enjoying those gas prices?
Oh my God. No. Oh my God. The other day, man, I was like running out. I mean, I was running out, and I stopped and I twisted my ankle up. So I'm in a boot right now. So like I can't really walk, you know what I mean? My ankle's all screwed up. And so I hop out the car. I'm like one leg booting up, you know. I go to the thing and it says see cashier. It was a debit only, it was debit only. All right. I don't know if we have those in Houston. I'm not sure
I've
if
seen
I
like some credit only, but like usually when it says debit only, it'll still take a credit card.
Debit only. They're more frequent out here than I thought, and you would think. And so I look at it, I'm like, okay, cool. I'll go in and I'll pay because I don't have a debit card. I got my credit card. I'm just gonna pay. I go in thinking like, surely you take a credit card inside, right? That was just an at the pump thing. No, definitely not the case. So I'm just like, I had $2 in cash on me. So I was like, here, just like something, just so I don't get, stuck on the side of the road. And so I give him $2. Gas was like $4.59 a gallon. So those $2 literally didn't even get me a half a gallon. And so I was just trying to get my light to go off, didn't work. So that was like a huge, huge moment of defeat. I was so pissed off at that moment in time.
You got yourself like a good 12 gallons, or not 12 gallons, 12 miles, like tops. Like that's what you got. You bought yourself 12 miles.
I'm like counting the miles. I'm like looking at the thing, like counting the miles to my destination, just trying to be like, I think I'll be okay, but I got to get gas like ASAP. Go out of my way, stop. Then I got to start the car back up with 0.4 of a gallon in. Like, oh my God, I was pissed.
Locked on Roosh Williams petroleum struggles out in California. Let's get into what we actually want to talk about here today. We're going to talk a little Dennis Schroder, his impact on the team so far, and also kind of just, taking a quick look at the 3 mainstay Rockets rookies, Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and Josh Christopher, how they've kind of progressed this season. And we're going to throw some grades on them at this point, kind of what we think their development has looked like to this point. But let's start with Dennis Schroder, the most recent, obviously, acquisition for the Rockets. Now 5 games under his belt, putting up numbers. He's putting up 11.4 points in about 30 minutes a night. The field goal percentage, not super great, just shooting 35% from the floor, a little under 22% from 3. However, he is averaging just under 5 rebounds a contest, 7.8 assists, and then turnovers, right about 3 a game. He has been facilitating the ball pretty well. And overall, it's felt like we've noticed his impact in these 5 games that he's played. He's had 3 starts, which is way more than we kind of thought that he would get coming into the fold. Obviously, KPJ's had his ailments as of late and hasn't been in the starting lineup, so Dennis Schroder getting the nod there. But Roosh, give me some of your takeaways from the impact that you feel Dennis Schroder making, both just as an offensive contributor for this team, setting guys up, and then also on the defensive end, which is, I think, something that was a bit unexpected for me. I didn't expect Schroder to come in and be, like a really amazing, like, point of attack defender, but he's actually kind of made his presence felt on that side of the basketball as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to have to agree. Honestly, I think he's been the guy that we dealt with in the bubble. I remember being scared about that series. If you want to go back and find the old tweets, I remember thinking like, "Yo, hey, don't take OKC lightly." And a lot of Rockets fans were like, "It doesn't matter," But I was really worried about that 3-headed lineup. I was less worried about Schroder. What I was worried about with Schroder was him morphing into like the best version of himself against the Rockets, which is what he did. But that was his best season that he's ever had statistically. So he was kind of in a groove all season. But I say all that to say, in that series, he was lightning quick. He was very smart with the ball. Sometimes he takes bad shots. You can question like a contested mid-range shot or whatever. But as soon as he gets contact on a screen from a teammate, he knows his strengths and he knows how fast and quick he is. And he takes that first step and he makes things happen. And then he also, what I love that he does is he goes baseline. And it's one of the most underrated things in basketball. If you drive baseline, okay, use this when you play pickup too. If you drive baseline and you have a competent handle, people watch the ball, right? So if you got 4 guys on the 3-point line and 1 guy's driving baseline, everyone's defender is going to turn and look at the ball handler. And if guys cut down the middle, it's a bucket. It's what Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire ate off of, right? They had such good chemistry finding each other. And so Schroder does that. He gets to he probes baseline and he's keeping the dribble alive, waiting for someone to cut. Now, we haven't really taken advantage of it because we're not, we have offensive issues and we could talk about that. But he does that and no one else does. It's something Kevin Porter Jr. does not do. Not to knock on KPJ or give him a stray or whatever, but if he would learn how to manipulate that baseline, you can kind of run different action because you can ISO and then load up the other side of the floor. And if you can break your guy down off the dribble, I mean, like Harden offense style, right? Like you can use that baseline to just manipulate angles and open shots up and in 2 different spots at once, rolling to the middle and then kicking it out to corners and stuff. But so Schroder does that. And so I like that. Defensively, he's intelligent. It's just smart basketball, man. I like to watch smart basketball. I don't like to watch guys just kind of like trying to do fancy, flashy basketball. Like Schroder, he doesn't have like crazy, and one moves, but he knows he's quick. He knows he can get by guys and get that contact if he needs. And then on defense, he knows how to slither over screens and stay connected to his man. Like Jalen Green's been doing an incredible job of that lately. I don't think it would be fair to just credit that to Dennis Schroder because Schroder's been with the team for like 2 weeks or whatever. But I don't know. You'd have to think like maybe that's something Jalen Green's learning, right? But it's just nice to see a veteran point guard, and I really want to see more of that Dennis Schroder, Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr. lineup. It was really intriguing, but it looked like it worked. And it kind of – I've been a proponent of KPJ being a ball-handling point guard. Some people talk about him playing off the ball as a scorer, and like with that look for like the 2 or 3 minutes that we got, it was fun. Like you saw the potential with – Jalen, KPJ flanking the wings and Schroder kind of manning things. The flip side to that would be, well, why don't you run John Wall at point guard? To which I'm not sure I have a good remark or response, and we could talk about that later as well. But it looked good. It looked fun. I think Schroder plays differently than Wall, so whatever. But yeah, so I mean, those are all the things Dennis Schroder's doing, man. He allows for things to happen. He brings a calmness and a competence to the offense that like you can trust. Like when things are breaking down, it's like, hey, just get it to Schroder and then follow him. If he's making a move, roll with them, flash to the middle, sink to the corner, whatever you're going to do. So yeah, it's competent. It's calming. It is interesting with the foil of John Wall as far as philosophy for the team goes. That's kind of, I need some explanations there, but all in all, I mean, I like it. And especially for Daniel Tice, who wasn't really able to make an impact. It's a nice little trade-off.
I do really enjoy you bring up obviously Dennis Schroder and his, the success that he had early in his career with the OKC Thunder. And I do think a bit of that like 3-guard lineup set here with the Rockets, the, very brief sample size that we got of it with Schroder, Jalen Green, and Kevin Porter Jr. out there, it is interesting because it allows KPJ to have that ability to move to an off-ball role with a legitimate point guard handling the rock next to him and Jalen Green. That's not something that we've seen when they do run, say, obviously EG's been in the starting lineup along those two guys. EG's not a point guard, right? He can be a ball handler and a primary in a pinch and like situationally, just because he's a vet and he knows kind of what he's doing with the basketball, but he doesn't have those natural like point guard instincts that you see so clearly with Dennis Schroder, the way that he's looking to constantly set teammates up, really run the offense. And I'm glad you bring up the probing thing, because that's something that earlier this season with KPJ specifically, I felt like he was really bad about picking up his dribble, like in traffic, especially. Like he'd kind of start his move, like 1-2 dribble, get the defender to kind of, get on his heels a little bit and then pull the ball up with like no idea whether he was going to shoot, kick it out, do whatever. And he'd pick up his dribble at like the 15 to 18 foot range and need like somebody to kind of come around the wing to bail him out. And he's gotten better about that. He doesn't, absentmindedly pick up his dribble as much as he used to earlier this season, but I would love to see him add that part to his game down the line, is, use his speed, get past his defender, and then probe that baseline for those easy opportunities that you highlighted. And maybe that's something that Dennis Schroder can, teach him along the way.
Well, I mean, look, basketball is about getting easy buckets at the end of the day, right? Defense, yeah. But at the end of the day, the team that can score easy buckets with the most consistency has probably one of the better chances of winning, obviously, right? So when you do that, like low dribble cross, boom, boom, flashy stuff that gets you on a ball is life mixtape, that KPJ is capable of doing.
Shameless plug. What a guy.
Cool. It's cool. It's awesome. Great. Makes the gym go crazy. But for 4 quarters in the NBA, it doesn't really matter. It's much more beneficial to you if that's like your second or third type move and you just do that for fun when you want to light it up, and not as your primary way of like creating space to get to the basket. KPJ's 6'6", 6'5". He's long. He's pretty strong. And if he understood or tried to get to his spots using like his strength, just using his body to shield guys off, using his shoulder to kind of just ward guys off, and then being crafty because he's got a nice little fadeaway, he's got a nice little pull up. If he was willing to go to get to those spots and then work, I think we'd see like a much different version of him. And maybe the whole trying to become a point guard thing has kind of held him back because he's trying to make his reads and the game's a little slower to him, and kind of thrown off his confidence a little bit at times, and also just thrown off his rhythm. So yeah, maybe he can learn that from Schroder. But like I'm saying, that's one thing Schroder's good at. He knows what he does well, and he just does it, right? And he forces you to try to stop him. He's not giving you any possessions off by like doing some, bullshit. Maybe every now and then, like every player does, but on the whole. And so, yeah, I'd like to see more of that from KPJ. But if we got to see those guys with Schroder running it and then Jalen on the wing, KPJ on the wing, get Sengun in there, maybe KJ Martin, maybe someone else that can shoot, it would be fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Hopefully that's something we see a little bit more moving forward. Hopefully KPJ's got to get healed up first with that ankle injury, but hopefully it's a lineup that we see a little bit more use out of in these next, 22 games, 21 games, 22 games, rest of the season. But coming up, we're going to dive into Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and Josh Christopher, their development to this point. We're going to get there after a quick message from our friends over at BetOnline. Football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for all of your sports betting needs. BetOnline is the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And hey, it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action available to you. BetOnline, where the game starts. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, appreciate you for making Locked On Rockets your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, be sure to check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of all the NBA action from our local experts, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's talk a little Jalen Green here, Roosh. Obviously this entire season has been, at least supposedly been about development and spotlighting and highlighting the rookies, the sophomores, and just kind of angling towards the future for this Houston Rockets organization. And it's been, if we're going to be upfront about it, it's been kind of an up and down season for Jalen Green, right? It's been kind of a mixed bag. We've seen some flashes. We've seen, some really mountainous highs from Jalen Green where he looks like, oh yeah, he looks like the #2 overall pick. He looks like a bona fide, scoring machine. He looks like he's going to be elite at the NBA level. And then we see other nights where he's just struggling like really bad and can't get anything going seemingly. And I think even just this past weekend against the Orlando Magic and against the LA Clippers was almost like a perfect encapsulation of his whole season, where he looked really damn good against the Orlando Magic, put up the 23 points, had the 4 steals, looked good offensively, defensively, was hitting the 3 ball, was getting it done inside. And then you flip that in the very next game against the Clippers, and he goes 4 of 18 from the floor, just 2 of 10 from deep, got nothing inside against the Clippers interior defense. Zubac was just locking down the paint, had like 6 blocks in that game. And so let's just kind of dive in. Give me your thoughts as to where Jalen Green is at with his development. And we'll go with letter grades or something here at the end of this segment, just what you think, what I think, and we'll kind of merge those two and come up with a concrete, this is where Jalen Green is at in our eyes right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's got a long way to go is where he's at. Some nights look great, other nights look really bad. I think the biggest issue is that the easiest way to guard him, the most effective way to guard him, is to just back up and leave him open, and he can get over that. He will, I hope. But it's really odd to see him not just destroy somebody backing up. That's like a free for a guy like him with his profile, scoring guard, all that, best shooting guard prospect in years since Kobe, whatever they were saying before the draft. To be left open with someone backing up on you, that should just be a gimme all day. Like, all right, cool, bucket, step back, bucket. But he's not able to do that. And I honestly think he might be better when he's actually being guarded. I think his rhythm is completely off. And then also there's just no emphasis on the mid, I guess the mid range, but like the middle level of scoring. He's either trying to get to the basket or he's shooting a step back 3, and he's capable of so much more. So, some of that is on him for sure. And I think that he definitely deserves some flack because, there's times where he's just not making the right decisions. Part of that goes into your decision making as a player. And
well, but before you get into the decision making part of it, do you have any worries that this is kind of like, look, I know that this was a very sore spot for Rockets fans everywhere during the Daryl Morey, James Harden era, but obviously, right, we see James Harden goes to the Brooklyn Nets, even with Philly now, right, being more willing to utilize some of that mid-range a little bit again, right, like he did earlier in his Houston tenure. Are you at all worried that this is like the continued, I don't want to say brainwashing of players to ignore the mid-range, but clearly that's been an area that the Rockets as an organization, at an organizational level from Daryl Morey on down, opted to get rid of the mid-range and strictly stick with, free throws, dunks, layups, and dunks, layups, free throws, and threes, right? And that came back to bite them in the ass, multiple times throughout, the James Harden era, unfortunately, until Chris Paul came in through that door and was like, green light for mid-range. So are you worried at all that might be a thing that could be going on where they're just like, no, you don't need to shoot mid-range because it's an inefficient shot. Don't worry about that.
Man, I have no idea what's going on in the building, but you'd think that if a coach wanted him to shoot it, he'd shoot it. And if he's not shooting it, so you'd have to assume and fill in the blank and think that, I mean, it's game, how many games are we in? 50 something?
Way too many. And I'm not doing math on this podcast. So
whatever, 2/3 of the way in the season.
Yeah.
And, I like remember it when he shoots from the middle, it's very rare. Like he did it the other night against the Clippers, and made the little fadeaway. And it was a great shot. It was easy to get to. Like, it gets him going in rhythm, so he's not just launching a flat-footed step back, close to the basket. Defenders are going to give him that cushion because they have to take away his drive by backing up. So he's going to have that shot all day if he wants it. Yeah, and it would be awesome to just see him like carve a team up, go 4 of 7 from that little mid-range spot, like, please. Because now if you can do that, the rest of the floor opens up. But right now, defenders know I'm going to back up and you're going to shoot the 3. And if you're on, then I'll step up and we'll figure it out. And if you're off, I'm just going to keep backing up. And he's shooting, I don't know, 30, probably 31 or below % after going 2 of 10. He was up to like 31.5%, but after going 2 of 10, I don't know. But 4 of 18 against the Clippers. But before that, he was playing well. He was scoring like 17 a game over his last, in the month of February, I did the numbers, and he was scoring 17 a game. I think 2 or 3 rebounds, 2 or 3 assists a game. TS percentage was like 61. 3-point percentage was like 40 something. Overall field goal percentage was like 47, 48. So that, like, he's checking those boxes in some ways. But the thing that we just need to figure out is, his scoring cannot simply be a matter of, is he hot or not? Because the best players in the game, when they're not hot, they figure out ways to hurt you regardless, right? And so
he's not a reliable scorer at this point, which is something that I feel like he was almost billed as being coming in, because he had that really polished score. It looked like a really polished scoring package in the G League, and he was supposed to be like the bona fide, like, two guard, scored all three levels, all of that. And we just haven't seen that consistency.
Well, I think he could.
Come
I think he
through.
could be, though, if you had him coming off like pin downs or curls or movement, catching around the free throw and then getting into a shot like that. I think he's built to do that.
So you utilized a bit more like a Devin Booker type, right? Which is what they're not doing.
Yeah. Right now they're just giving him the rock, on like a fake handoff, or he'll get the ball, he'll come up off a screen and catch it, and then like sizes his man up between the legs, boom, boom, backs up, recharges, makes his move, guys backing all the way up, nothing open, step back. And like that's all we were seeing. That's it. So he's not right now. He's not an ISO player. Right now, his best version is, I can beat you to the spot to catch the ball, and I will beat you to the spot, and then you're already going to be on your heels, and I've got only 17 feet to work with, so I'm either going to make a move and keep you on your heels or beat you to the basket, or I'm going to boom and step back and just hit like a quick free throw midi, and then you mix in the other shit, transition, baseline cuts, occasional ISOs out on the 3-point line, screens to pop him open so he can run, catch, shoot, then you mix that stuff in ancillary to like establishing him within and around like the painted area right above it, right? But he's not being used as that. He's being used as like a prime James Harden, like, here you go, work, you know what I mean? And he's not ready for that yet. So yeah, that's kind of my qualm with it is, I feel like there are ways to get him easier baskets than he is getting, or easier looks than he's getting. How much of it is a matter of him failing to execute, and how much of it is a matter of them drawing plays up for him that are what we've actually been seeing, I don't know. And like I said, some of it's on him. Like, he's timid with the ball. He'll catch the ball and like dribble and survey, and then 3 seconds later pass the ball. That's on him. He's got chances to take more shots, but he takes himself out of certain plays because he's not certain what he should do, not confident in what he should do, which is why I think he should be used the way I'm describing, which is like, get him to spots so that it's kind of like in a post up, right? You don't post someone up from the elbow. Alperen Sengun does, and he'll just like back you down gradually. But back in the day, like it's about getting your position first. You fight to get your position, right? You earn that and establish that position, and then you catch the entry pass and you go to work, So it's like you get to your spot, and then that's why they say you get to your spot and then you get the ball, right? If you're not working from your spot, you're expending energy and time trying to get to your spot. And by the time you do that, a whole like array of things have gone different than they should have been, right? Shot clock's winding down, guys are out of position, help defenders coming over and already ruining what you're working with. You're expending energy, so you're less like you're a little more tired. You've already used a few dribbles, so your guy's not off on his heels the way he would be if you were a few feet closer. All of these things, right? And so when you're just dumping it to a 19-year-old that's that has a go-to move, but the go-to move is basically a step back right now, or a straight line blow by, you're seeing what you're seeing, right? Either you're at the mercy of the step back, or you're at the mercy of whether he's going to finish the blow by. Sometimes he gets blocked, sometimes he doesn't get the call. Like, so.
What's wild is like, I wonder if too, because obviously this, all signs point towards this is a bit of an indictment on Stephen Silas, but at the same time, without, immediately pointing towards him, I also have to look at let's look at the personnel on the floor. And one of the heavy criticisms that you and I have both had of Christian Wood to this point is the fact that the dude doesn't set quality screens like at all. And so if you're talking about like getting Jalen like coming off of a pin down, like at the free throw line area, who conceivably is the guy that's supposed to be setting that screen within the Rockets offense? If you've got like KPJ handling the rock in the perimeter, you've got
funny enough,
who
it was supposed to be?
Who?
Just think about it for a second.
Oh, well, I mean, should be Alperen Sengun.
Yeah. It should have been Daniel Tice.
There we go. You're right. Yeah, it should have been a quality big,
and that's something
quality screens.
And that's something we talked about. Like, people talked about his ability to do that and how he effectively did that for Jason Tatum when he was with Boston. Jason Tatum, obviously a far superior player to Jalen Green. I think that's not even debatable. So maybe Tatum uses that screen better than Jalen is, whatever. But that's the guy that was supposed to be doing it. Alperen Sengun does a good job of it. does a much better job than Christian Wood of it. Yeah, like last game, Christian Wood was even passing the ball. He wasn't being selfish with the ball. He was giving it to Jalen, letting Jalen work. But they just don't have that chemistry. And
it's just not there. It's crazy.
Well, he needs guys you need players that make your job easier when you're not good enough to be like,
like for example, right? The night that we're recording this podcast, Monday evening, Ja Morant dropped 52, a new career high for Ja, a new franchise, single game scoring record high for the Grizzlies. And a big reason for that, the man went 22 of 30 in the game, was 4 of 4 from 3. So he hit 18 shots that were inside the 3-point line. I mean, he is the number one guy, in the league as far as being a guard under like 6'2", or historically like shooting, crazy numbers at the rim. A big reason for some of Ja's success, and a big reason that previously that Russell Westbrook had a lot of success, is their big man. Steven Adams knows how to set a brick wall of a screen, which opens things up for the guards. And we just don't see that with Jalen on the floor with Christian Wood. He sets those like half-hearted screens where he's already like, again, I've said it before, every time Christian Wood sets a screen, it looks like he's already slipping. Like, it looks like he's slipping every single screen that he sets. And the guards, KPJ, Jalen Green, they never get the necessary separation to then get that advantage of the defender, right? Because basketball is all about creating an advantage. And at the end of the day, they're constantly fighting an uphill battle, basically utilizing just their speed and athleticism to try and create for themselves, because even when Christian Wood is setting a pick, it's just not doing a whole lot of anything. So I do wonder if that plays into some of what the offensive sets that they are limited into running, if that makes sense.
He's a small forward, dude. I watched them. I was live. No disrespect to him. I mean, that's true. He plays like a small forward. He's treated like a small forward by other centers. I was at the game against the Clippers, the first one where they got blown out. I don't know. Is it Zubac or Zubats? I think it's Zubats.
I think it's Zubats. I might have said Zubac, but
I don't know. Zubats was literally just like looking at him and then just shoving him. And it was kind of embarrassing. I was like, damn, dude, like that's how you get treated by your peers. You get thrown around, and like, he's like, he's kind of like, oh, like, I don't know. You just don't see guys that box out or that have like physical toughness do that amongst their peers. Right. So it was just kind of obvious that, like, first of all, he's out of position. He's constantly like looking at the play and then looking back. And as he looks back, other things are happening. And then second, like I said, like he'd be under the basket. Zubats would be 2 feet behind him. Plays happening. Christian checks, turns back around to watch the play. Shot goes up. Zubats just comes and just scoops him out the way. Rebound. Like it's nothing, So he's not a center. And his game is not like a center. And he does, when he sets screens, they look like slip screens. He's just coming up, like setting it for a second, and then boom, to the basket, So I don't know. Yeah, Sengun makes things a little bit easier. But yeah, personnel-wise, the Rockets also just don't have that much talent, So that's what I'm saying. They're asking Jalen to be that 2-guard guy. But, he's not. But we talked about Sengun and Josh, and we didn't actually talk about them, right? So should we talk about them?
We're going to talk about them we're going to talk about them in segment 3. We're actually even running long here in segment 2. We're going to get to Jalen's actual grade here in just a moment after a quick message from our friends over at rockauto.com. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's basically impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you would ever need. Why endure the often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning like, is your car an LX or an EX? And you have to wait while the person goes behind the counter to check their, warehouse to see if the parts are in stock. They're not going to be in stock. They're never in stock, right? Save time and money when using rockauto.com. Why choose to spend up to 30, 50, or even 100% more for the exact same parts from a local chain store or car dealership? Best of all, rockauto.com is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The prices are always reliably low for every single customer. They don't charge DIY people more, which is exactly how it should be. They've got everything that you could need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even brand new carpet. So go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto parts needs. Best of all, this is a super important part. When you go to their website, when you go to checkout, be sure to write "Locked On" in there. How'd you hear about us box so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Be sure to visit rockauto.com. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, appreciate you for making Locked On Rockets your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NBA podcast. I host it on Mondays, but it's there every day of the week, Monday through Friday. It's recaps of all the games, all the biggest storylines around the NBA, Monday through Friday. Be sure to check it out, free and available wherever you get your podcasts, also on YouTube as well. Now, Roosh, we didn't actually get to our Jalen Green grades last segment because we wound up going down the rabbit hole that was Christian Wood and some of the frustrations that we both have with him, unfortunately. Not that they aren't warranted frustrations, but that's not what last segment was about. So really quickly, let's dive in. We did talk a little bit about Jalen Green, some of what we've seen out of him this season. If you had to assign a letter grade to him for how he's developed, how he's progressed this season, what you've seen out of him, just kind of all of the above, where would you go? And I can go first if you want me to drop my letter grade first.
So just to be clear, when I'm talking letter grade, or what I'm evaluating, I'm just talking about the whole season, start to finish.
Season, start to finish,
Yeah.
start to finish.
Start to finish.
Damn it! Come on, I didn't want. I was like hoping he wouldn't catch it. The slip.
Start to finish, right?
Start to finish.
Start to finish. Give me the fixins. Yeah, I'd give him a B minus. I mean, he's had some nice highs. He's had some routine kind of solid games. He's had some routine bad games, and then he's had some stinkers, right? He's had the whole thing, which maybe you could grade out to a B, but I'll give him a B minus because the efficiency's been really poor. 39% from the field, I think. Let's make sure. 38.7, I round up and down. So 39% from the field, 31% from three, just under 15 points a game. The one thing he's like objectively doing well is shooting free throws somewhere in the 80s. The other thing we didn't talk about in the last segment that I'll just briefly touch on is that if you're going to be inefficient and if your shot's going to be off, what I need to start seeing is the player, in this case, Jalen, being able to affect the game in other ways, right? Right now, if Jalen Green's not scoring well, he's really not making an impact on the game. And so I'd like to see that change, right? Hey, Jalen's not scoring well. Okay, get on the ball and start creating for your teammates. Or lately he's been playing really good defense. That's one thing that has, he still doesn't have the frame or the muscle, but you can just see the work ethic has resulted in the defense is actually being much better. Sometimes he sleeps off ball. He'll get beat off ball, backdoor cut, whatever. So that's still happening. But on the ball, he's tenacious. He's determined. He's chasing his guys through screens off the ball. He's chasing them through and around and across screens. So deserves a lot of credit for that. But B minus because he's been up and down, grading out somewhere average to the middle. Efficiency's low, and he's not affecting the game too much elsewhere. So B minus.
I'm glad you bring up the defense. I was kind of in between going B minus or B, and I settled on a B just because I do think that if you look at where he was at to start the season and where he's at now, especially defensively, that is like an area where, even if he's struggling to put the ball in the basket, he can find a way to try and impact the game. And unfortunately, he's not put in a position on a nightly basis to create for his teammates, to have the rock in his hands, to, facilitate, create for his other guys on the floor and impact the game that way. But his progression on defense and the learning that he's put forth on that end, what we see on a nightly basis from him, does give you like cause for cautious optimism moving forward that he's figuring things out. He's learning defensive schemes. He's looking better on ball. Yeah, you mentioned like the off ball stuff, but even like pass it, like there are times where he gets like a switch or somebody's like rotating out to contest a shot at the perimeter, and he does his job, even though he's not necessarily doing it super well because he's, tiny and kind of in frame and whatnot compared to other bigs and 7-footers, but like he'll rotate into a big and like do his best to like box them out like under the paint. And these are like legitimate like defensive principles that he's like picking up, learning, and executing well. Just against the Orlando Magic, he was playing passing lanes really well. That's how he came away with 4 steals. He's learning and anticipating what other NBA teams are getting ready to do. And a big part of that is just getting used to what they're running, learning, other offensive sets, that kind of thing, and being able to evaluate what's happening and process the game a little bit faster. So even though it hasn't all kind of come together offensively for him, at least not consistently quite just yet, we've seen the highs and lows throughout the season. I think the defense has definitely kind of earned him some points, at least in my eyes. So I'm going to go with a B for Jalen Green. We'll figure out so somewhere in between an average B minus for Jalen Green.
Yeah, at first I was going to say he's like one of those students that's like got a 79.7, but you bump him up to a B or, but maybe that's a little too harsh. So I'll go B minus. And yeah, he's using his athleticism lately to get steals. He had like 4, I think, the other night against the Clippers. And I mean, on a couple of them, he was like soaring and just scooping it out of the air. Right? Was it against the Clippers or
it was Magic? It was
Magic. Yeah, and so that was really cool to see. Kind of like he's reading lanes or reading like passes in certain situations and using his athleticism to get up and get there. And so that's been nice to see. So yeah, he deserves credit for that. But I would really like to see the assist and rebound numbers hit like a baseline of 4. per game eventually, right? Like if he could be a 20 plus, 4 plus kind of guy, I will be pleased, you know.
And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all for him. I think that's well within reach just based off what we've seen so far this season. And obviously what we've discussed, right, is this season hasn't been, I don't want to say disappointing. That's too strong of a word, but he hasn't been, up to his true potential quite just yet, I don't think. And so I do think that the 24-4 is well within reach for him.
Well, when you look at the makeup of the team, right, you want, like, I like Phoenix's model. They've got 2 defensive wings, 3-and-D wings, Bridges and Crowder. They got an impact 2-way big, Ayton. They've got Chris Paul, of course, but they would still be a good team with someone, not as good as Chris Paul. Like if they had Dennis Schroder running point, they'd still be a good team. It's just without Chris Paul and not replacing him adequately. It's tough, but and then they've got Devin Booker, obviously, right? So if the Rockets could follow in that kind of mold, you get Jalen as your scoring 2. Schroeder's not a bad point guard to have for this little bridge if they are eventually to compete. So maybe let's just say Schroeder plugged in, Jalen on the wing, maybe KPJ. Some people talk about the prospect of him as a 6th man. I'm not saying I put any thought into that. I'm just saying, like, for the fun of creating this little construct of the team, let's just say KPJ 6th man. You get 3-and-D, a 3-and-D guy, maybe 2 of them, and then hopefully you can draft an impact big in this next draft, and then all of a sudden maybe you got something cooking. So that's just food for thought. But yeah,
I don't want to go down another rabbit hole, but I will throw in one last thought here about the 3-guard lineup. Imagine Jaden Ivey alongside Kevin Porter Jr. and Jalen Green. That's all I'm going to say, just because I'm very intrigued by Jaden Ivey.
Jaden Ivey scores, though. I don't know if you need 3 scoring guards. I want someone that's like got the true point guard like vision and mentality.
He also creates at an elite level. Like that's going to translate at the NBA level. I feel it. Like I feel like the way that he gets to the hoop.
3-something assists. I mean, look, I haven't done my homework, so I don't know. I just surface level looking. Like I see people comparing him to John Morant. John Morant was putting up 24 and like 10 in college. So, I don't watch Jaden Ivey like that. I've maybe seen like a game, other than highlights and like YouTube stuff. But I don't know, 17-3. I don't know.
All right. Let's go Alperen Sengun, and we'll go Alperen Sengun, Josh, Chris here really quick. For Alp, I'm just going to lead us off with a letter grade here. I'm actually going to go based on where he's at and how he's looked all this season. And honestly, I'm going to give him an A-, honestly. He's been really impressive. I think that, he started off with, some of the foul trouble a little bit earlier on the season. He's been better in that regard as of late. Coming in, didn't know the pre-draft process, right? Wasn't sure what he was going to look like defensively. He's been engaged on that end. He covers ground really well. He understands his pick and roll defense has gotten a lot better as the season has gone on. And when he's given the opportunity to be on the floor in extended minutes, we've seen him put up numbers. Like he is, in my opinion and in my eyes, the future of the center spot for this Rockets team. And it's just kind of a question of when this Rockets team ultimately decides to move on from Christian Wood, because Alperen Sengun is that talented to me. And his ability to create offensively, his ability to create for himself. He's like 3rd in the league in, creating out of like isolation opportunities or points per possession or something like that, when it comes to what he's able to do. Or no, sorry, I apologize. It's free throw rate. That's what it is. Because he just gets to the line, right? He knows how to draw fouls. He knows how to utilize his body offensively. Even his defenses have gotten more accustomed to what he brings to the table. He's adjusting, he's learning, and he just looks good when he's out there on the floor. He makes good decisions. He processes the game well. And he's been, to me, the most impressive Rockets rookie this season.
Well, it's hard to disagree with that. I'm not going to really take anything away from that. I'm just going to add on to that. I would give him a B+. I think my rankings are, I guess, a half grade harsher than yours. He has had issues with defense at times, and there are times where in certain coverages it doesn't look good. How much of that is his fault? I don't really know. I think he's smart enough to know where to be most times, but the communication's not there, and him and his teammates are not thinking the same thing, so it just results in someone slipping open. And then turnovers and the fouls, even though I think most of the fouls are bullshit, I'll ding him for those. But here's something interesting. I did this while we're talking, so forgive me if the numbers are maybe a little wonky. He's played 4 games of 27 or more minutes. Okay. 4 games all season. Evan Mobley's averaging 34 minutes a night, which is infuriating. So in those 4 games, these are his averages. Okay. 68 points total. Just doing quick math. I think that's 16 and a quarter. Right. Wait.
No, it's 17. Isn't it?
Yeah, you're right.
There
I was dividing 68 by 16, which would be 4 backwards. You're right. 17. So 17 a game. Rebounds, it's 25, 34, 36 divided by 4, 9. 17 points, 9 boards a game. Blocks, 5, 6, 7. So just under 2 blocks a game. Steals, 8. So 2 steals a game. So 17 points, 9 rebounds.
Just under 2 blocks a game.
Just under 2 blocks, 2 steals. Oh, and then assists, 8, 10, 11. So almost 3 a game. So 17, 9, almost 3 dimes, 2 steals, and almost 2 blocks a game. He's doing it all on 12, 19 out of 25, 36. So almost 50%, or a little bit over 50%. 19 out of 36, whatever that is. 25. Yeah, 19 out of 36. So slightly over 50%. He is 4 out of 10 from 3 for 40%. No. Sorry. I missed a game. So he is 14, 19, 26 out of 40. That's not right either. Out of 50.
You know what?
Sorry.
This is where we're derailing the segment, trying to do the
26 out of
live
50.
math numbers. The point is,
Listen
he's
to me.
putting up good
me.
numbers.
Listen to me. 26 out of 50. Anyways, 17, 9. 3 dimes almost. 2 steals, 2 blocks almost on over. And he's only gotten 4 games of that. That's criminal. That's criminal. If he was getting 39,
and it's because Christian Wood is directly in front of him in the rotation right now, and it sucks. Like, that's just where we're at. Like, and I said it on a recent episode. I would love to see Steven Silas at some point.
I was just saying those are crazy
ahead.
numbers. Are they sustainable? I don't know. Was he in shape to play like that? Yeah. We can disagree, but he needs to be unleashed to end this season so that we can know to what degree we can expect this guy to be, what we expect him to be, so we can know what to surround him with, so we can know how he plays best and be equipped with as much intel as possible going into the draft. You don't draft for fit, but, you might want to take some things into consideration, or you might want to use that Brooklyn pick as some type of piece. Who knows? So, yeah, B+ for Alpy.
No.
You give him an A-.
No. I gave him a flat A. You gave him an A-. Don't you mess with my.
I gave him a B+.
You said B+. My bad. I said A. You said B+. So we were a little off. But with that's Alp, and I do hope we see more of him later this season. I don't know if they're gonna load manage Christian Wood, but at the end of the day, that's the reason he can't get more minutes, because Christian Wood plays his 30 to 32 minutes and Alp gets the rest of the minutes at the 5. And that's just kind of where we're at right now. And it's frustrating and it's unfortunate, but that's just the reality of the situation for the Rockets to round out this season. But last guy on our list here, last rookie for the Rockets, not named Usman Garuba, because we don't have a whole lot of data to evaluate with Usman Garuba, so he didn't make the cut, unfortunately. Josh Christopher, who I'd come away saying he was the most surprising of the Rockets rookies to this season, to where, he came in, really made a name for himself, really carved out a spot in the rotation. And now, unfortunately, looks like he's taking a back seat to Dennis Schroder, at least as far as the rotational minutes are concerned. Looks like he's probably going to be getting anywhere from 12 to 15 a night. But with Josh Christopher, right, he's shown an ability to handle the rock. He's shown an ability to kind of run an offense. That's what he got sent down to the G League for. Did that at a high level. Came back. Now he's a bit more, in the role of like his natural position, 2 guard. And the numbers haven't looked great, unfortunately, since Dennis Schroder got rolled into the mix. Like, Josh Christopher's numbers have kind of, I don't want to say they plummeted, but he just hasn't looked awesome. And I don't know if that's because he's trying to get accustomed to not having the ball in his hands as much anymore, or what. Maybe it's just a shooting slump. But for the majority of the season, he's been pretty impressive. I'm not going to grade him as highly as Alp, but I feel like I can comfortably say just where he's at, I want to give him a B-.
Yeah, I'm going to give Josh a B, because same kind of reasoning with Jalen. He's had his highs, he's had his lows. He's been a little more steady at times. He's been the most steady rookie at times. And And overall, he's efficient. 52% from two. 3-point percentage has dipped recently. It was like around 35%. Now it's down to 31. TS percent 53, 54, and it was higher than that. So he's been efficient. Since Schroder came on the team, I think he's like shooting some like 20% or something like that. Basically, if you take out the Clippers game that they got blown out in, so basically if you take out garbage time, he has had like a very, very rough game. I'm not going to derail things with my math again, but just look at the box scores. It's like 0 of 3, 1 of 8, 5 of 12 garbage time, 0 of 4, 0 of 3. Pretty bad. So maybe he's hitting that rookie wall. I'm not really worried about that, but I'm pleased with, overall very pleased with him. He looks like an NBA player. I thought he was going to be more of a project 2-year type thing, but he very much looks like he could be an NBA player, and he's got some go-to moves, kind of the opposite of how we talk about Jalen. He's got some NBA, I guess, tested and proven moves now. He's got that little shoulder bump that he finishes with. He's got the little turnaround at the basket. Defensively, he's physically equipped. Sometimes he overplays and overdoes it, but as he gets a little more disciplined and smarter, I feel like that will take care of itself. So overall, man, pleased with Josh Christopher. I give him a B. And some of that's relative to expectations as well, for Jalen and Josh.
Yeah, I definitely think with the expectations, the bar was set a little bit lower for Josh, and so he's kind of exceeded those expectations a little bit quicker than we would have expected. And then Jalen, the bar was set pretty high, and so having not met some of those expectations, we come at him with a bit of harsher criticism, which I think is kind of warranted when you're coming in as the number 2 overall pick, right?
Yeah, it comes with the territory. There are high expectations. Look, that's why we remember some of the worst number 1 picks of all time, right? Because they were the number 1 pick, not because they were a bad guy, not because people hated that person, but one of the most premium assets in all of sports was used on that player, and they didn't work out, and people remember it, So like, it just comes with the territory. So he's going to have to live with those expectations. And obviously he said some of the things he said. So like when you say, so if someone said that, I mean, look how mad some people are that Evan Mobley didn't want to work out for Houston, So had Evan Mobley said hey, I don't even want to live in Houston, we would hate him, So there would be a ton of people on Rockets Twitter that would absolutely hate him. And so that just comes with the territory. So, he's just got to produce. And some of the draft people, I think some of them deserve some, I don't know what the word is, but accountability as well, right? Like they touted him as ready to drop 17 a game, and he's not, unless he's, shooting 17 or 18 times a game. So it'd be an inefficient 17. But yeah, like Mike Schmitz, he does good work. I like Mike Schmitz. But anytime he says I'm still high on Jalen Green, it's because he's got to be. So just remember that. Like he made a write-up about him. So if he was to be wrong, he would look like a complete idiot. Not saying that he is wrong. I'm just saying he's obviously biased towards his own work. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. I got high hopes. I mean, we know that Jalen works hard. His defense has gotten better, right? We know that he likes to work on his game. So the tools are all there. They just got to get him to the right spots.
That's all we can ask for at this point. But it'll be an interesting final third stretch of the season to see what these Rockets rookies continue to be able to do on a nightly basis. Hopefully Josh Christopher finds himself out of this shooting slump here soon. Hopefully we get more consistent Alp play. Maybe, fingers crossed, Steven Silas may even bench Christian Wood at some point if Alp is outplaying him. I don't expect that to happen, but
also keep in mind, literally the primary reason Christian Wood came here, to what extent James Harden played in his decision, that I don't know. But outside of anything that had to do with playing with James Harden, it was because of Coach Silas. They know each other from Charlotte. Like they have a relationship. He came here for Silas. So as much as we may want certain personnel decisions to happen, think of that from Silas's perspective. That's probably really tough, right?
That's Silas's guy. Yeah.
It's Silas's guy, so just keep that in mind. We talk a lot of shit, but I try to keep that in mind, even though it's difficult to watch some and just want Alp to play. Like there are human elements that also kind of are at play as well.
Absolutely. It's not just 2K, unfortunately. You can't just plug and play. There are, emotions that have to be balanced, egos that have to be massaged. There's a lot of stuff, relationships that have to be managed between coach and player to player and all of this stuff, all these different variables that we try to bring up, on a consistent basis rather than just talking about the sheer XYZ of like, oh, just plug out, just start starting LP. You can't just do that. It doesn't work that way. That's not how this happens. But with that, Roosh, always a pleasure to have you on the show. You know the drill. Let everybody know where to track you down at.
Heck yeah, I rambled this time, but it's just some pent up frustration. Roosh Williams, man, you see it on the screen if you're listening. Roosh Williams. Noble and Roosh Show. We just interviewed Corey Kispert of the Washington Wizards today, so that'll probably be out in a couple days. Shit, yeah, it is what it is. I'm tired, man. I've been working a lot, so I'm
yes, and you've also cursed a ton in this episode. I've like racked them up in my head. I'm like, I should have like a little tally counter in the bottom right hand corner.
Am I not supposed to? I thought I could.
No, you can. It's just like, I just think it's funny when it happens like multiple times in one episode. I'm going to start up a tally counter. That's what's going to happen. It'll be like when I switched you up and I gave you the Roosh Williams tag like mid episode and you weren't expecting that. I'll have a tally counter built in for number of times that you swear on the podcast. It'll be great. It'll be all, fun for all ages, fun for the entire family.
I'm tired and I still got some more stuff to do. So a little off my game this evening. So I appreciate y'all sticking with me. We'll get it better. I'll ramble less. I'll cuss less.
No rambling. It was good. It was good content. We had some good discussion about the rookies, about Dennis Schroder, all of that. But my guy, always a pleasure. Thanks for stopping by.
Oh.
That's going to do it for today's episode. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, brand new Odyssey app, free and available on all platforms. Also check out the new YouTube channel, search Locked on Rockets on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. What do you grade the development of the 3 Rockets rookies who have gotten playing time this season? Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and Josh Christopher. Drop your grades in the YouTube comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked on Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.